So how did the release of Pine go? I feel like that game kind of came and then you guys went quiet for a long time.
Yeah, it was kind of wild because obviously you start as a student team and there's not a lot of time to think about all the processes and a few of us, like we were a team of classmates and friends. I wouldn't say we're like a real studio. This was just 7 people who found each other in school and were hyped to try something. So when Pine released, it was actually quite successful because of a lot of pushing that Steam was doing for us.
Are you able to say like how many copies you guys ended up selling?
For Pine, yeah, I can say that. I think it was copies ish.
Oh wow, that was way more than I was expecting. That's really good.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. I mean, that's.
Hello and welcome back to Beyond the Pixels, a new interview podcast series here on Second Wind, hosted by me, Nick Calendra, the editor-in-chief of Second Wind. This week I spoke with Mattijs van de Laar, who is the founder of Twirlbound Studios. They're a small studio based out of the Netherlands that has gone kind of under the radar for a lot of people, I think. They were working on a student project years ago at this point called Pine, which was like an open world action adventure game with like a lot of like background systems running for like evolution and kind of territory control between the different factions in the game. Really ambitious project for students. And it turns out it sold way better than I thought it did, even though I thought it sold okay. That's a number I'll save for the actual interview so that you actually listen to this thing. But their newest game, the Knightling, which KC on our team really loved. I've played a good chunk of it as well and really loved it. Loved what I played at least. And it's just unfortunately really gone under the radar in a market that is full of good games going under the radar. I believe the Knightling has under 300 reviews on Steam, which is criminally low for the quality of game this is. And so I wanted to speak to Mattijs kind of about just the struggle of selling a game in this current market. It's a topic that comes up all the time in my Unpacked videos. It comes up all the time on the Firelink podcast. Once you release a game, like how do you get people to it at this point? Because they had a publisher behind it with marketing, good trailers, good demo feedback, and it just didn't sell. So this is a really candid conversation about the topic, I think, and we get into a little bit about Twirlbound Studios development history and their journey to becoming a studio and kind of what's their plan for going forward now that the Knightling is out and it's struggled a little bit. So don't forget to subscribe to Beyond the Pixels on YouTube or your favorite podcast platforms. And of course, if you want to ad free, it's $5 a month on Patreon. All right. So yeah, let's just get kicking off with you introducing yourself and kind of what your background is in game development.
Yeah. So my name is Mattijs. I'm a creative director and CEO at Twirlbound, a small indie studio here in the Netherlands, in the south of the Netherlands. I have a degree in game design and production, and in that capacity of being in school with a few talented schoolmates, we started Twirlbound early in our school careers, and we thought that we could do some commercial projects with that as a sort of label. And our first commercial title came out of our graduation project. So really our origins are in game development school here in Breda in the Netherlands. It's one of the better schools, I think, for game development because they teach you AAA development. So we were taught how to make the biggest games out there, and a lot of the students go to Ubisoft and the likes. But we decided to apply that to a very small team and see if we could, apply all those techniques and learnings to a much smaller endeavor, if you will.
So what does that mean that at that school they were teaching you how to make larger games? Like, do you guys work on like bigger teams and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. You learn about working in slightly bigger teams than you typically would, I think, in a school, but also just the techniques of it were like if we had a game design class, it wasn't necessarily like make a prototype in Game Maker or some smaller engine and do something with that. It was really like make a level for a first person shooter or something like that, right? Or do a design analysis of how the open world of an Assassin's Creed game works and like the density of activities and the stuff that you do in there and the dynamics of that world. So you get a lot more of the the inner workings of these massive systems and these massive teams working on all of this content, rather than I guess more of the bottom up approach of like find a cool mechanic and try to build a game around that, which you see more typically in game dev schools. It's more indie focused usually, and then in the design and production one, you also get a bit of business and a bit of marketing, a bit of release management, that kind of thing, so that you feel like you're actually building towards a project. And then in collaboration with your other students, you get to work on actual game projects for a few months. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so you and I actually have a pretty long history. This is the first time we've ever actually met on camera. You guys started Twirlbound in 2010?
2013-ish, yeah.
2013, okay. Because I started my only SP in 2012, and I remember covering Pine pretty early on, because that was a very ambitious student indie project, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
because you guys wanted to do like a big reactive open world and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it really started. We were like, obviously we were young and naive. Let's start with that. But it was also the idea of we're in the safety of this school environment to do this last graduation project with all the knowledge and the teaching capabilities around us of like, everything is stimulated to try new things. So we thought, let's go out with a bang that we would not typically dare to take, if it was outside of this environment. So that became Pine. It was like, what if a world is not player-centric, but world-centric, right? What if the stories and everything are happening in that world? Which I think is something that all the Ubisoft open world games also tend to do. And we did it on a much smaller scale, but with a big focus on that reactivity indeed. So having all these tribes and creatures around that have a life of their own, and we simulate them in an environment where they need to look for food and shelter and all that stuff. And we then drop the player in to do your quests with or against these creatures. And this was super ambitious, but we had this space to investigate a little bit and to do some research on it. A little bit of an academic flair to it, so that it was a really nice base to go from. And then on top of that, just building a small demo, and we could instantly see, like, we won a Unity Student Award, and we could instantly see there was something about the concept that was enticing to people. So we thought, let's just, kickstart our studio with this if we can. Yeah.
Were there, what other examples of like games would you know of that came out of that school?
Ooh. Well, I think Pine became one of the bigger ones. There was a really cool student project last year, Atan, it was called, that won a BAFTA for the best student game. But
what was it called?
Yeah, Atan, I think, something ATAN, I believe it was. But that's more in the student sphere, because it's a AAA school, it's actually quite rare for a studio to break out and do or for students to break out into their own thing and do like an indie angle. You kind of need someone interested in business or in the smaller scale operations for it as well, as opposed to everyone being trained to just go to Ubisoft. And honestly, like, the school brings forth a lot of talent. So
Ubisoft farm team sounds like.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, and like Guerrilla Games and like the bigger AAAs around us. So there's just a big, people just go to those studios typically. And you don't see that much coming out of there's some cool projects like the Senders, for example, the downhill mountain biking game. That's also students from this school, but that's like their second project after graduation and stuff. So it's like, it just brings forth a bunch of studios, but not necessarily that started in the school. And then Pine is one of the only ones, I think. Yeah.
I've heard of a lot of game development schools, but I'm not sure I've heard of many that actually teach people about the business stuff. That seems unique to that school.
Yeah, it is quite unique.
I feel like somebody skip over that part.
Yeah, and honestly, it wasn't a big focus either. Again, because of the AAA focus, like it's rare that you'll need the specific business skills. But what they did do was some business marketing. So it was like we had a whole class about game production that was specifically focused on interfacing with a marketing team, right? We were role-playing that we were making a game for a big brand. I think it was Red Bull or something. And that we would have to do meetings with this Red Bull team that had all these things to throw at us, right, for marketing purposes. And it's like, this is an interesting dynamic that you'll see at a AAA studio as well. So there's parts of that too. And honestly, it's one of the best game courses. I think it is the highest rated like game school program from all the public schools, because you have some private programs in LA and Paris that are a bit higher rated, but they're much more expensive as well. So this is one of the top rated ones. So I'm very lucky that I was able to go here and that it's so close to where I was born as well. And that we found like-minded people who wanted to start Twirlbound with us. So it was very cool.
So that was, when did you graduate? 2013?
Yeah. 12,
So,
yeah, no, actually, no, 2016. We started Twirlbound a bit earlier, actually, to do some like commercial projects for some clients, earn an extra buck for the student times. And then 2016, we graduated and with Pine and really kickstarted everything. Yeah.
would you, 10, well, I guess a long time out since that time.
Wow. Yeah.
Is is that still something you would recommend to people to check out, or do you think like the game development tools and kind of tutorials, like free tutorials and everything, have kind of overtaken it?
I think you can go a long way making games yourself, but the biggest thing, at least for me, about games is making them together and the dynamics in the team doing that. Like one of my core beliefs is that the longer you are with the people you make games with, the better they get, right? So we have a big sort of sustainability goal here in the studio as well. Like we'd love to work with this group of people for as long as we can. Everyone from the Pine team originally is still here as well.
Oh, wow.
And you really can sense that every discussion, every meeting, you get to know each other a little bit better. So we know exactly who is good at what and what direction things are going in. And to that end, starting that in a school program is really great because you can find like-minded people. You can really get to know yourself and other students as well in the safety of school. You don't have to earn your money with it yet. So definitely a big recommend. And then if you do, and if you have ambitions to start your own studio, I would definitely recommend doing that while you're in school so that you have that safety again on top of it. And it's not like on the day you graduate, you'll have to start earning, your money with your first game. It's kind of like it's a safety net to start a bit early and start experimenting with things.
Yeah, I'm sure being in like a closed environment is probably helpful because you see so many people like on like Reddit, for example, like game dev forums trying to find volunteers
teams
to work together, and when you're remote, it's like it falls apart pretty quickly.
Yeah, and nothing beats just seeing how people work and collaborating, right? Like you can not really envision that too much. You just have to see it. So that really helps. Yeah.
So how did the release of Pine go? I feel like, that game kind of came and then you guys went quiet for a long time.
Yeah, it was kind of wild because obviously you start as a student team and there's not a lot of time to think about all the processes and a few of us, like we were a team of classmates and friends, and a few of us got some very like good internship opportunities. For example, at 2K to work on the Mafia games. We had people going to Guerrilla Games and to Ubisoft. And we really pushed everyone in that group to like, please take this, because then all the experience we're getting there, however this will go, Pine might not even come off the ground after graduation, right? We still needed to do a Kickstarter and find a publisher, etc. So working on that and getting that experience from those studios later as the project grew, that was great. But we still, I wouldn't say we're like a real studio. This was just 7 people who found each other in school and were hyped to try something. So when Pine released, it was actually quite successful because of a lot of pushing that Steam was doing for us. We had games
very different time for indie games.
Very different time. Yeah, I remember being at around like 40,000 wish list, and that was enough to get like the notification push on Steam when you open Steam and you have the pop-up window. Yeah, now that's not going to get you anywhere near a push notification, right? So very different times. We had like 50 million impressions, I think, in the first month. And it was just this big surge of people coming in and like, oh, what the hell is this? And just trying it. And I think, it just kicked off quite well at the start. Because it was our first game, I don't think it was a perfect game by any means. Like, there's a lot to improve on, but I'm very proud that we got it out there. And it brought some new ideas to the table that people are excited to learn from and borrow from as well. Like that's pretty cool. But the tail was not that massive either. I think it's it did well for us, and it still continues to bring in some cash for some extra stuff to do here at the office. But it's I would call it like a medium success, but now looking around me, I'm considering, wow, that was actually a pretty big launch, like comparatively especially to how things are going now. So I don't know. I'm very proud of the project. I think we're making better stuff now, which is kind of, as you hope it would be. I must say I would be more daunted if it was like such a big hit and then you get the second album syndrome or whatever you call it, right?
Yeah, invest all your money and go too hard.
Yeah, exactly. And not knowing what to do. Like now we were able to more slowly build up the studio and really think about all the processes and the ways we're going to protect ourselves, because we, going from student team to, full-time development, you don't necessarily have the best practices in mind, because you're kind of just, as a student, you're always just working, and days and nights and weekends and everything kind of blends into each other. So taking the time for that and really looking at our processes and making sure we were set up for a sustainable studio, that was really good as well. And if it would have been a huge hit, I don't know what that would have done to us, and like if we would have, kept fresh on everything. So yeah, no, I'm pretty happy with how that went.
Are you able to say like how many copies you guys ended up selling?
For Pine, yeah, I can say that. I think it was 225,000 copies ish.
Oh wow, that was way more than I was expecting. That's really good.
Yeah, no, it's I mean that's
and that came out in 2017.
No, 2019. So it's
2019.
Like in the last 5-6 years. Yeah. 6 years, damn.
Yeah,
but yeah,
time,
that's
time
mainly,
doesn't feel real at this point.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's mainly Switch and Steam. Like those two are pretty similar. We obviously had a very difficult Switch launch that was ported by an external company, and we were still finishing the game, and it was just a very difficult process. So we ended up redoing the Switch port later, and re-releasing that, and that did a lot better. At least it kind of cleared the mind, because it's on the eShop, it doesn't matter what you do, right, in terms of reviews. But it was good for us, I think, to dive into that and really get the experience of it. And after that, it started selling a bit better there too. So quite a lot of copies there. And then on Epic Game Store, we had a massive influx of players from like a free week promotion, as some games do.
That wasn't that long ago either.
Yeah, that was like 2022, I think, or 21 or 22. And that's like millions of people. Yeah.
I remember seeing it on there.
Yeah, no, it was a really cool opportunity. And millions of people claimed the game, which is a really nice way to, like, wherever we go, a lot of people's like, I think I have that game. But then again, the engagement is a bit lower because a lot of people just claim their games on Epic Game Store, right? But no, I'm very happy with how Pine went and spread around. Yeah.
All right. So tell me, so you guys released Pine, and then, where you, 225,000 copies. I mean, like, that's a good chunk of money for you guys. So you start thinking about the Knightling, which is your next game, and just tell me about the kind of that journey, because that was a
origins,
long development time.
Yeah, you could say that again. So everything that we did for Pine, it didn't feel like real in a way, because it started as that student project, and we didn't really think ahead. We weren't able to think ahead because it was stepping stones, right? It was just, okay, graduation's there. We won an award, that there seems to be something there, working on a demo a little bit for like a Kickstarter, building that up, going through that, and then a publisher. And then it's like, you're just building as you go and miraculously releasing something at some point. The money is coming in, but at the same time, you're like, what do we do now? Like, what is it that we're actually good at? Is everyone still interested? It happened to be the case, but then COVID hit the world as well. So, at this time also our office, the building that we were in, was getting destroyed. So we need to find a new place to work that had internet issues. So I remember this is a very vague time of like trying to just figure out what to do. The one thing that we did know was that it was pretty special that we built an open world action adventure game with 7 people. And we're like, this seems to be the technical niche that we can push ourselves in, which is we know how to do it because of this school that we went to. Let's just keep pushing for that. So the main thing that we spent our time on at the start was, let's define the tool set that we've built for Pine and how to actually build it for, longevity and multiple projects as well, so that we don't get this one-off feeling, but we actually can sustainably build these types of games, basically have the most cost-effective open world games you can get, right? That's kind of that's a pitch as a company, I suppose, more on the business side. And there was this idea brewing during the development of Pine, and I wrote a note somewhere in 2019 in my phone that was just like a game with only a shield, because I was thinking the classic, combination of a sword and shield that we've seen a lot, and we're not going to add too much to the table. And this was around the time when everyone was playing God of War with this multi-purpose axe, right? It's like a narrative thing, and it's a puzzle thing, and a combat thing. And I was like, well, it's a pretty good way to reduce the scope a little bit. And that's where the Knightling was born, playing as this squire character with only a shield and all the creative ways you can use that shield. And a lot of the project, especially in the first 2 years, I would say, was building out that tool set properly and making sure that we had something robust to build content with. as we were also growing the team a little bit because we wanted to make sure we had enough people. Like everyone was wearing way too many hats, so we wanted at least a few more people to help with all the content side of things. And having a school so close by, because that's in the same city as we are here, there's an amazing pool of talented like people around and interns that could help us out, and then eventually land at Twirlbound. So most of our team right now is from that school, which, you know, so we've become the Ubisoft the Ubisoft point of draining that school, but no, not really. We're 16 people now, so we've always stayed small. That was also a core principle that we started adopting. Was like, we will lose whatever we had going on here if we ever go too big, because that's kind of what makes this special.
That's
right?
our same philosophy. Even though we are probably the biggest indie media team.
Yeah, and that's like right now. I'm especially happy that we ever made that call or went down that route, because it's it's just brutal out there, and you see a lot of studios being pushed to grow a little bit by publishers and stuff, and it's very scary. It's already scary to sustain 16 people, let alone going to 40, because the game concept begs for it. So with the Knightling, that developed quite well. We had very fun ideas, and we were aching to make something more playful, because Spine is very systemic and very heavy on systems and on the gameplay as well. And we never spent too much time on like the traversal and the actual combat, because we were like, that's not the USP of the game. But in the end, that's what you do most of the time. And I think that's also where the biggest improvements were to be made. So we wanted to flip it on its head. And instead of doing the world-centric thing, we just wanted to make something very playful and kind of tick all those boxes of making an action-adventure game that has like cool cinematics and really nice world building and sort of the feel of the play and the movement and traversal, the combat and everything should just feel a lot better than with Pine. And we just started developing that and started pitching that to publishers. That's kind of the origin start of that. Yeah.
So let's get into the meat of the discussion then. I wanted people to have the background on your guys' studio journey, because I think it's important when we start talking about this heavier topic of how are you doing today. I think it gives you context of like just how different things were not even 5 years ago, where a game like Pine would sell over 200,000 copies, and like even in the games and media space 5 years ago, you had a few games a month, and post COVID, it's insane. Like we get 5-6 review copies a week for good looking games. Like I'm playing Constance, I'm playing Total Chaos, I'm playing Arc Raiders, I'm playing The Seance of Blake Manor, and they're all good games. And I'm playing another one right now that doesn't come out until December 4th. And I'm like, holy shit, this is good. Like it's every week.
Every week, it's like the saturation is insane, and I think we all barely are seeing how bad it is, because we're in the middle of it. It seems like similarly when COVID hit, I don't think anyone was really like aware of how big that surge of influx of players was, and the investments that were being done, and the M&A sprees and the investments until a bit later, when it all came crashing down, right? This was very sensible in hindsight. But I remember us as a studio, we were just releasing Pine. I don't think the initial surge of Pine was due to COVID, because nobody saw that coming yet in October 2019, I think. It was just that the tail was probably a bit stronger because of COVID. And it just felt like, this is how games are selling. But no, everything was just ticking up in, the start of 2020 when that started hitting. And then having all these conversations with publishers as well, who were just going crazy on investments and on money that they were throwing around. I vividly remember having a lot of pitches for the Knightling, where publishers just wanted us to like 5x the budget, because it was possible, and why not? And like this could do with a bigger team and like more content and stuff.
That's what I was about to ask. Like, did you guys get a lot of money thrown at you during COVID? It seems like every indie team was like, if you had a good pitch and a game that was interesting, the publishers were like, here you go, here's a check.
Exactly.
Go for it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it also made certain publishers take more risks. I think if you look at the Knightling, it's not like a secret to see that like it's not a typical game for the publisher that we went with Saber Interactive, right? They typically do a bit of like a darker game, but it was also a time where you just want to expand your portfolio, right? And see what else is out there. So we just found a really good fit with them because they're such a development powerhouse, and we were like, we're a small team making an technically ambitious game, so it's good to have a partner that understands that and has a lot of experience in a lot of these areas. So that made it a really good fit for us. But you see this all around, like a lot of teams were just, money was being thrown at them, and some were very susceptible to that because it was maybe even their first game, and then that just didn't hit, and that eventually leads to the crash, together with all the big
it seems like a lot
projects
of people,
like Concord and stuff where that also happens.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people that kind of came from the AAA world were like, oh, this is our chance to go independent. Got a lot of funding.
That as well.
Games take too long to create. Money runs out. Studio closes, and like we've seen. I mean, this year alone, like Marty Sleeve on our team, he and I worked on a video back at the Escapists that covered like 20 different new studios that started up during COVID. And I think maybe 5 or 6 of them have actually released a game, and I think most of them have closed at this point.
Yeah, and that's, if you look at the stats, they don't lie. Like releasing 1 game is kind of a miracle, and then releasing 2, you're kind of in the top, I don't know, very small percentage. I think I've always been a bit conservative when it comes to growth and money and all that stuff, because I'm like, it's kind of scary to have a studio around.
Yeah.
I think the biggest misconception is that if you have somebody from AAA stepping out to make a studio, they're going to make a good game. Like, it's really about the team, right? If they don't have the people around them that they're used to working with, it's a very intimate process, right? Making games, you're diving into each other's minds all the time, and you need to be aligned, or at least know how to align each other if you have a disagreement. I think that's the most important thing, is that you find people who you can work with. And us having done that, that's kind of the hard part. And then making a game, releasing it, that's the super hard part. And then after that, you kind of got to sustain that. And it's very enticing if all the money in the world is being thrown at you. The only thing I could just think of was, I don't know how to manage 40 people, so go away, right? We need to find someone who understands what we're doing, what we're good at. So, and it helps that our technical niche was, let's build open world games with a very small team, because then that's something to hold on to. As soon as we grow big, we don't have any edge over any other studio anymore. So that has always helped us stay small and sane in a way. But yeah, it was a very strange time, and indeed a completely different time than right now. It's like you said, every week, it's like I'm playing a game that's pretty much the best in its genre ever, right? I'm still going through Hades 2, and my mind is just, I basically want to quit making games after playing that one. I'm like, how does anyone make this stuff? But even there, like Supergiant is a massive example for us. There's a studio who have been together since their very first game, and it just shows in everything they do, right? The Japanese studios are also good at that, like the Tears of the Kingdom team having a lot of overlap with the Breath of the Wild team and stuff. It's a very interesting angle, but yeah, the saturation is just mind-boggling. And as a consumer, as a player, I'm almost not enjoying it anymore, because I just don't know how to keep up. And this always used to be a problem, but now
stressful.
It's extremely stressful.
Yeah, it's like books for me. Like I buy a bunch of books and I just don't get to them, and then it bugs the hell out of me.
My Goodreads telling me off. Yeah, it's the worst.
Like I started like keeping a list of games that I completed on my Twitter account, like right around COVID started, and I started tracking every game, and every year it keeps getting shorter and shorter because I start so many games, and I'm like, I just don't have time to finish it. I want to move on to the next thing, and it's like so a game like really has to hook me now for me to like really stick with it and want to finish it, which is doubly annoying because they're good games and I feel bad for putting them down.
Exactly. I had this with Silksong as well. I waited for that like everyone else for like 10 years, and I'm playing it, and I got through most of it, but it takes me so much time to get through some of the bosses that I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna, I need to go to Hades 2 now. Like it's time. I don't have time anymore.
You don't even cover them for a living. You can spend as long as you want on a game.
Yeah, exactly. I
gotta have something to talk about. I've gotta have something new to talk about every week.
Oh God, yeah, that's just added pressure. But yeah, so from the developer table, this is a very scary thing. I think for a while now we're not even battling like marketing or money or anything or spend that people have on games. It's just time, right? It's just how do you break into that? I think it's 8% of time per year we still have for like new IPs or new games, new experiences that people don't know. And the rest is just either sequels, or I think it's 65-ish% is going to the 5 games right at the top, right? Like FIFA, Minecraft, Fortnite. It's just these numbers are so skewed that it almost doesn't mean anything anymore. And obviously the game industry is big enough to, if you can find your way into that 8% somehow, you can still take a slice and be okay as a studio, as long as you don't grow too big. But it feels like it's really hard to tell. I don't even think players know what they want at this point. So it's really hard to find and validate, like, what is the, you have all these massive games that people are waiting for and everyone needs to play them. But then you also have the mega bunks and the Vampire Survivors and the games that seemingly come out of nowhere and just take the world by storm. And it's like, it's really hard to optimize or design for that. I don't think you can.
No.
And
a lot of studios I know are like working on smaller projects like that to hopefully fund, their dream projects, take away the risk of putting all their money and effort into something they really want to make because they made something that's just a money grabber. And like a lot of people like look at those games as slop, like friend slop or whatever you call it. But like I don't know, it doesn't bother me as long as it's fun and like it's bringing in money to fund your studio, then so be it.
And it feels like the whole industry, or like all players, are just moving between games. Like every week you hear people talk about this game for a week and then they just move on to the next thing, and that can be fine for a studio for sustainability. It's just on the front of it, it's really hard to optimize for that. Like you cannot really tell. And as soon as you're going to chase a trend or something that's working well, like everyone's making peak likes right now, right? But by the time these are finished, this whole thing is gone and has blown over.
I'm working with a studio that wants to release one early next year, and I'm trying to help them with the concept a little bit on a consulting side, and I'm like, this trend, like, you don't know how many more games like this are going to release in the next 4 months. Like, you got to think ahead. You got to think ahead.
Exactly.
Do something different.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's that's extremely hard. So you hear 2 main things, I think, from the studios, at least something we're also doing and things that we hear around us. And one is, it's got to be smaller. It's got to be faster. The 5-year projects that we've done twice now, it's too big of a risk. Too much happens to the world and to the industry to warrant that, right? So we got to find a way to do it faster. Luckily, the tools are speeding up, so people are speeding up with their games. It also means you get a lot more slop and a lot more, Valve has a lot of work to do still to cut through through all the shovelware and the sort of non-serious projects and surface the right ones. For example. So there's a lot of work to be done there because of the accessibility of tools. On the other hand, something we did and we started investing in during the Knightling is having a tool set that just allows us to not worry about the core of it, like having a third-person character walk around an open world with an inventory and a quest system. That's kind of a given for us now. Like, we can tell so many cool stories in that framework, and that saves us like 2 years, right? So thinking ahead about that and really covering a niche as a studio, that's really important, I think. Some studios, like a studio like Heart Machine, for example, I don't know them personally, but Heart Machine does a lot of different things, right? I can only imagine behind the scenes how difficult that is, constantly switching your pipeline, switching the flow that you have going. They obviously went from something super small in 2D to like a 3D game with Solar Ash, and then Hyperlight Breaker building on top of that, but also adding multiplayer. And then Possessor is like a 2D Smash Bros game. It's like, I wouldn't want to be in their shoes of like having to figure that out every time completely from the start.
Yeah, we're literally about to launch a video where we covered Possessors, and Heart Machine is an interesting story because like Hyper Light Drifter again came out at that kind of time when like indies were really kicking off, but weren't overtaken by saturation yet. Even today I'm wondering, like, would Hyper Light Drifter sell in this market? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question.
So many good-looking pixel art games come out now. Yeah. It's not really the story behind it's unique, but that doesn't really, unfortunately, sell for a lot of games. Yeah. So I'm like, but yeah, they're switched to they're switched to Hyper Light Breaker and 3D. When I first saw it, I was like, why? Like, this doesn't look anything like what you made. Like, you're gonna throw away your whole core audience.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what happened. Like, unfortunately, they laid off everybody that made that.
Yeah, game. Yeah, and then, like, going back to it, would have been a strategy, but then doing a side-scrolling Metroidvania, that's also completely different. Like, I'm sure it's very interesting creatively. Like, I would love to break out like that. And we're very lucky, I have to say, that with open world action adventure, there's so much room to wiggle within that framework of like, having the quest-driven, inventory-based, just a character walking around the 3 Cs, etc. And we're doing something quite fresh right now after the Knightling that is still based on that core, but it feels different. So we're lucky in that sense. If you're making racing games, then you're stuck making racing games, I guess. It's like, but I do think it's the only strategy to really build up sustainability. Even something like Supergiant Games, who always say, by the way, like nothing they do you can learn a lot from, because the time in which they started and the path they had is just almost not replicatable. You can't replicate it. So, but even them, you can see all the similarities, right? The isometric stuff, the voice acting, heavy narratives, the type of combat that they do, and now obviously with the sequel. So yeah, that's one thing. It's like games need to be smaller, and you need to try and find a niche or a production pipeline that allows you to make things faster, and stick to your audience. Because that's the other thing. It's like, as a studio, in this publisher heavy market, a lot of the attention goes to the publishers, especially for certain publishers. And developers don't get a lot of tools to let the audience stick with them, right? Except for their own email lists and their own following and stuff. But usually the marketing machine is behind the publisher. So you get this weird discrepancy of having to build up your audience every time. And we had something similar where it's working with a bigger publisher comes with the risk of, they are a bigger name. So nobody's going to know who made this or even care that we made this. So that it's hard to activate the Pine audience on that, right? And it's also a slightly different game. So, you see this a lot. It's like build up your own community and really stick to them so that you have a bunch of people cheering for you when you release any game or when you release anything, because you have a connection to them. That seems to be a very powerful thing. And slightly related to that, maybe more of a third point is product validation. You hear this a lot. You hear it everywhere. It's like, try to validate as early as possible what you can do. So before it was like, don't talk about your game before you sign a publisher because it ruins opportunities for them or whatever. Now it's like, you can't talk to a publisher before you've shown your game to anyone.
You gotta show the game. You gotta rack up the wish list. You gotta have the social attention.
Yeah, exactly.
They want to know. They want to know that game's gonna sell, or at least have an interest before they even sign on. That's kind of what it is, and that's the Let's get back to the Knightling then. So first of all, congrats on the game. Like, it's really fun.
Thank you.
Obviously you saw Casey's review and he really loved it.
Yeah, super cool.
So, the reason I reached out to you is because on Steam, unfortunately, like, it doesn't look like it's sold too well. The reviews are pretty low. You guys also had to, not like almost right before release, you stopped your Switch port of it. And then, is it on Xbox and PlayStation yet?
Yeah, Xbox, PlayStation, still on.
PlayStation. Okay, so I guess, looking back at Pine, which sold over 200,000 copies 2019, how has the Knightling done in comparison?
Not as well yet. For what I can say, it's not as well yet. Like, that's not going to be hard to see, right, or to tell. I think it's a very different time, and you can even see it at the very base of it. The amount of impressions the Knightling got on Steam is so much less than Pine. And obviously Pine got a lot of featuring done, but that says something about people call it wishlist inflation as well, right? Like, even launching with a similar amount of wishlist, you would not get the same amount of impressions or features or pushes as you do. You just need to be a lot stronger and in a much higher tier for that to be noticeable. Then I think on consoles, where it's a bit harder to see how games are selling, although now with reviews also stacking up there, you can kind of get a sense of it. The discoverability there is almost non-existent. Like, Valve at least does some sort of featuring and pushing, but that's extremely hard to get without like a specific partnership with any of the console platform holders. So
it's insane how much like just junk like, you would think it wouldn't happen because there's such closed environments, but Xbox and PlayStation, Nintendo, they released so much garbage.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
I think on Switch store alone, I've seen like 3 Peak clones that have nothing to do with the game. I'm like, how are these legally on here?
Yeah, eShop is bordering on like mobile stores. It's like,
I wouldn't.
They also have to,
actually, I would say it is just as bad.
Yeah, and it's a bit harder to get there because of the dev kits and sort of the development environment. It's more than the Google Play $100 retainer that you got to pay them. But the eShop has the weirdest thing where the best selling list is just based on the amount of copies. So if you constantly discount your game to the lowest amount, you're going to always be in the charts, right? And you get a lot of slop just breaking through like that because it's so cheap, as opposed to revenue, which is more common to do, I think, for all the other stores. But yeah, that said, it's not ticking off as we were hoping to. I don't think that's a secret. We are just mainly trying to look at what happened with Pine and why. Obviously, it's a very different time, but like you got to try and learn from like what we've been doing with the Knightling. Also, because it was such a long project, it's kind of a shame that it doesn't do as much as Pine, because we think it's a good game and also it's reviewing really well on Steam. People really love being in that world that we created, and I think that the audio visual experience of it is great as well. So it's kind of just a lack of eyeballs on it, right? Like it's just harder to break through all that saturation at the moment. And yeah, you can see it in all the data and all the numbers that it's just a very different time to release a game. Yeah.
So I don't know how much you can say, but you guys have the backing of Saber on it.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, like I haven't seen them, and I don't want to throw them under the bus or anything, but I just haven't really seen much marketing from them. Was it more just they helped with development, but they weren't really signed on to do heavy marketing or anything?
They did do a lot, sort of not through their channels maybe, but like the typical marketing right now, I think for a deal like this is also, PR and sort of background support of making sure everyone gets the copies and also working with influencers and stuff. So that's where the marketing typically goes. I think what we struggle with the Knightling is that we are a very small team and you kind of want to approach it a bit indie-like, but as soon as you sign on with a big publisher, that's really hard to sell, right? Like are we indie? I don't know what indie means at this point. We are a very small team.
The Game Awards.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, I think in Triple Click, they also said like we're up against Timothée Chalamet in the Indie Awards, right? Like you just don't know what it means anymore. It's a very different, very weird world to be in. I think there was also something similar with the Rogue Prince of Persia game. They really tried to push like we're an indie game. It's like, yeah, but you're Ubisoft tweeting this, Ubisoft, right? Like it's at least don't be big on the idea that you're indie if you're not sure how to describe it, right? So I don't think
the indie label really sells it anymore. I think it really has to be the game stands on its own merits.
Yeah, exactly.
You get so many games that are like made by one person, but it's like, well, they had QA testers, they had localization, they had all this different stuff that went into the game. Like, is anybody really? Yes, there are like completely solo developed games, but not. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's just a label at this point because there's just too many games to really matter. Because like a bunch of the discussion around like Expedition 33 is
exactly
were they an indie team, and it's similar, like, well, there's so much like misreporting on that studio. Like some of them came from Ubisoft, a bunch of them were brand new developers. Like I don't know, they're just a good
it's
team.
Weird. I think a game that tries something new and typically comes from a smaller team, that's probably a better description, but it's a bit long to say that every time. So I get that we need a label, but I don't think indie is cutting it anymore. But yeah, for us, it's always that difficulty because with Pine, it was also like we have Zelda at Home was mentioned a lot, right? It's like, okay, how do we make sure that people know we're not even pretending to be Zelda because we don't want to be Zelda? It's just, it's a stylized action adventure game. Yeah, you're going to borrow things from Zelda because it's a really good game, but this is a different scale that we're operating on. With Knightling, we had a similar problem of like, how do you make sure that people know that this is not like a big Ubisoft game? And the funny thing is everyone who plays it can see it because there's a lot of like character and sort of, you can see the love, I think, that a small team put into it, as opposed to here's like a cookie cutter open world game with a bunch of standard activities and density and stuff like that. But in marketing and in how the game is presented, that's always a bit more difficult to do. And I think what it ends up being is that it's a very good game, but maybe on the surface it looks like just an action adventure game that's pretty nice, and it might lack a bit of urgency. And I feel like that's a key word here, because from what as a player myself, there needs to be an urgent reason for me to play something because there's so much coming out, right? I need to be able to prioritize it over something else. I had an urgency to play Hades 2 because I really want to play that game, and I'm pretty sure, like Silksong, I played on day one as well because I know everyone's talking about it, and I don't want to be, left behind in a way. So that makes it a game that's like, okay, I'm eager to check this out. And we can also see that in the wishlist activity right now. It's like, yeah, a lot of people might be just waiting for a better time to buy this. The scary thing is, I don't know if there's ever going to be a better time. Like, it's only going up, right? So I don't know where that brings us. I'm very proud of the game, but yeah, it's unfortunately not as big as Spine yet, yeah.
Do you guys think maybe you focused too much on the open world aspect of it over instead of like the 3D platforming? Because that kind of seems like what's in right now is 3D platforming games, and
yeah, I think that's also fair. Yeah, we were struggling with that identity even during development a little bit because it is quite open. It's a bit more open linear than Pine, as in you unlock these areas in succession. But the platforming actually was the thing that kicked off the most in marketing as well. It's just that structurally, it was an open world game, and also as a studio, we wanted to say like, hey, we can do these things, which is we have these cool open areas and a lot of stuff is happening in there, and it's quite reactive and things like that. But yeah, the platformy movement side of things is eventually what kicked off, and that comes down to a bit of product validation. As you already said, Pine came out and then we were silent for a very long time. This was kind of a conscious decision of we've developed Pine completely in the open. We did like a weekly dev blog for years on end, right? It was just we constantly screamed about making Pine, and we were aching to just return to our shells a little bit and yeah. Cook on the Knightling before bringing it out. But eventually that ties into both the product validation one and the community one, which is you're kind of losing touch with the people who were really rooting for the studio. They want to know more about what you're doing. And product validation wise, you think you have something going. There's a publisher who signs it, so clearly there's some belief in it from people who know a lot more than we do. But you're not really testing with the audience, like what is working, what is not working. So it can lead to these identity crises of what is the strongest point that we should zoom in on because people want to play this. So I think that's a learning that we're definitely taking into the next thing. Is just like people are eager to learn from these indie studios and see how the sausage is made if you can spend some time on that, and it will really help your sense of community and launching as well. So yeah,
that's the advice I've been giving to developers is like, you almost gotta like, I feel bad because it's like we're in content creation and media. It's already stressful enough, and I can't imagine making a game and doing that at the same time. But to stand out at this point, it's almost like you kind of have to become a content creator alongside developing the game because people want people to root for, like you said, and showing the game as you're making it like helps people like connect, give you feedback as you're going. Not everybody wants that. I think, it kind of depends on the project. If you're making like a super personal artsy project, you probably don't need people's feedback, but for a more mainstream appeal something, you might want more feedback. There's a YouTuber, I don't know if you've heard of him, called Big Fry. He covers a lot of FPS games. Yeah, they're about to release their first game called Transient on like December 19th, I think. A really impressive looking first person shooter that like
that's cool.
Communicated with his audience almost a 3-year development journey of putting this together. And he said they just put out an update video the other day and they're like just about to crack 50,000 wish lists.
That's amazing.
So, it's interesting to just see how development has shifted. Yeah. And for you guys, it's kind of funny. You guys went from being a very open studio to a very closed studio, and you kind of see the results. And who knows if it would have changed anything because of saturation now, but
true. But I think a little bit, especially for games like us. And then if you do work with a big publisher, I think it's important to show the heart behind it, because that is a core reason for people to play something like this. Like everyone has seen enough like open world AAA games that just do the same thing. I think that's a sound that you hear a lot from the audience. So somehow showing that you've put a little bit of like a very personal touch into this might help a lot, and that's one of the ways to do it. And indeed, we have the very clear comparison of two projects of doing it and not doing it. And I kind of miss doing it as well. Like it's not as hard as I thought it would have been with Pine, because we have a Slack channel. We make a lot of stuff during the week, so it's a matter of just collecting that, making some GIFs and some images out of that, putting that in a blog post, and then you're kind of like, hey, this is what we did, and just talk about that.
Well, I'm sure a lot of studios would want to I'm sure a lot of studios would want to just hear about this development pipeline you guys have created.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to worry about the fundamentals and just kind of get to create content.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a very liberating thing to be able to write about it and just show what you've been doing. The only thing to be careful of is, things change a lot during development. So don't go like Peter Molyneux and promise a bunch of features that seem great on the one Monday, and then the next it's kind of gone. So that's always with Pine, the initial research phase was a lot about neural networks as that was coming up, kind of to train the creatures in the world.
Remember that? Yep, I remember trying to cover that as a very dumb high school kid.
Yeah, no, but
like,
that was
what the
very.
hell are you guys talking about?
Yeah, and that was actually really promising in terms of the research and the first prototypes that we did. But eventually, as we were developing the game, it was like, oh, if the system works perfectly, it plays like a good game. So why not design for a good game and not worry about the stress of all the randomization that comes in, right? But this was like, we were very open about this and about the changes of it, but it was a very stubborn thing throughout the rest of the development of like, hey, how's it going with this thing? It's like, well, look at this blog post. We are explaining what we're doing with it and that we're not putting it in the final game because it's not worth it. Yeah, you do get a lot of that, I guess, with open development, but it also has a charm to it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So is there anything you would have done differently with the launch of the Knightling to maybe get it around? Obviously, we talked about kind of some of the longer term stuff, but launch wise, just didn't seem like it took off as much. I thought, just seeing people play it at PAX and everything, like this thing is gonna do really well. I'm assuming. Well, I'm hoping you guys are working on a Switch 2 port, but I'm assuming you might have missed your biggest audience on Switch.
Yeah, that's something we're considering. I was just, I don't know if I would do anything different for launch, as in if I could tell you what that would be, because
yeah, I guess
a lot of it comes down to that. Yeah, a lot of it comes down to that road towards launch, I think, and just how you're building up the hype, and that sense of community as well. And just the huge difference in that's kind of my main takeaway. If anything, I think the earlier product validation would have probably let us make a little bit more content with the movement stuff that we had going on in the Knightling, because now it turned out to be like the most popular thing in it and people love sliding around on the shields. But at this point, like the game was kind of had its structure and all the combat and everything as well. And it's like the things that work a bit less well in the Knightling, we spend a lot of time on. So yeah, just getting it to audiences earlier would have probably let us focus a bit on the things that work best. And early access is like one way to do that. I'm not saying that we're doing that for the next project because we don't know yet, but I can see why this is so enticing for some studios. Like you do the product validation in a very clear, concise way. The only big risk is that if the first build there doesn't really land, then it's really hard to pull that back up, right? Unless you're like something like No Rest for the Wicked, which had a rough start and then just redeemed themselves.
Early access is like such a beast of its own now, because you could throw a game in there and take years to kind of get it right, and now it's like you have to almost release a content complete game before you go into early access.
Exactly,
everybody's going to take you seriously.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
Fair. Like, so unfortunately, like too many people have screwed the pooch on that system to reduce so much trust in it. But like the games that do well on early access do really well.
Yeah, exactly. And the layer before that was, I think, Steam Greenlight, right? This was also just when we were
back to that.
just when we were doing
concept simulator in there.
Yeah, exactly. But it was kind of powerful to get like it was a product validation step in a way for some projects, if you could find your audience and a really good talking point on socials and to connect like your community, your audience with that. It's like doing a small campaign almost on Steam. Yeah, it had its own problems, but like we are kind of missing those things. And I think Steam is also not really pushing to bring developers to the limelight, because a lot of games, you've probably noticed, if you click the developer, you still go to the publisher like website, right?
Yep.
Every developer on earth, if they get a hold of Steam, they talk about that, like, what is this about? Because it's actually in the hands of the publisher usually. So with us, with Knightling, Saber was kind enough to just link to our page, so that's really cool. But it doesn't happen a lot. It doesn't happen often.
Yeah,
so
notice that.
Stuff like that is really weird too. If you want indies to be successful, they got to be able to build up an audience, I think. Yeah.
And you guys got a lot of press coverage on Pine when that came out, if I recall correctly. Uh, Obviously, much like the games industry, the games media industry has kind of been wiped out from all this stuff. Did you guys see a similar amount of coverage, or did you see like a really reduced amount of coverage? Not only because of saturation, but just because like the mainstream side of games media is almost gone at this point.
Yeah, I think we saw, because the publisher was so big and has a really good PR partner for it, we saw a lot of good coverage, especially during development and at the announcement phase. And then Silksong announcement hit around our launch, and things got extra woozy, I think, on that side. So around launch, it was a bit quieter than we would have expected because, for example, an outlet like IGN had a lot of build up for us during the announcement and a lot of the big beats. And then at launch, it was kind of, they didn't do much with it. So you kind of don't know what to expect. I do think the impact of the media has become a bit smaller. Like we could see literal upticks when something would be, covered for Pine. And then with Knightling, it was a lot harder to see like the relation between those two. So it seems to be shifting to, I don't know, short form video and more consumer side media that is not necessarily related to the big press, if you will. So yeah, definitely a difference, but we got a lot of coverage from, just being with a big publisher and having a bit of a, well, not a name after Pine, but at least it was our second game. So that helps, I think.
Mm-hmm. So can you say anything about what you guys are kind of looking at doing next? Or I'm assuming you're sticking with the open world and all that kind of stuff, but are you going for more traditional or?
So we're actually going for something a bit bolder, because one of my other and maybe like last takeaways from Knightling is that, again, maybe it was a bit too safe on the creative side of like just making an action adventure game and has a combat pillar and a traversal one and the narrative and the questing one, and we were doing a lot of things right, but it's also doing a lot of things. And I'm like, okay, maybe the games that we enjoy a lot and also games that we can make a bit quicker, focus on a bit less and do that really well, right? Seems super obvious in hindsight, but that's how game development goes. So we were lucky enough to do an investment round around the launch of Knightling as well, with a local development agency and a local investor here in games, which means it's not really project bound, and that gives a lot of room to breathe for us to work on things. And they really invested in the team and the types of games that we can make, so that's really cool. They didn't really focus on whatever was next after this. Obviously, now we're all looking at it together and going like, well, how do we product validate this as early as possible? But yeah, we're super excited to just work on new things. And indeed, we're sticking to our niche. We're not going to make racing games now or like a simulation game. That would be, well, maybe like Pine, that would be interesting, but not like in the traditional sense. And we're going a little bit bolder, like a very strong USP, I think, a bit of a smaller core, but something that is actually unique, which brings its own set of sleepless nights, because I'm like, how do we figure out these creative problems? But that's really fun to do as well. And yeah, we're hoping to start sharing that way sooner than we did the Knightling. So talk about that soon, hopefully. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad to see. I'm glad to see Knightling doesn't seem to have hurt you guys as much as I was worried it did. Just because based on what you said earlier in this conversation, you guys are conservative with your money and all that. It seems like you didn't put everything on the line for that game. It's like, yeah, I mean, it was a very long development process, so it's really, this investment round I think was a good call, because we can see how much talent there was in the team, and they could see that as well, and that was the thing that we were trying to preserve. So I guess regardless of what Knightling did, we at least had that at the back. Obviously we would have liked it to be better, what the Knightling did so far, but it's still early days, so we're very keen on it, trying to keep pushing it, and people might discover it later down the line. That happens sometimes. I think the funny thing with the conservatism and the investors that usually doesn't go hand in hand too much, right?
But we're very lucky with the ones that we found and understood, like, again, that our technical niche of making open world games with a small team, you don't want to jeopardize that. So if the pitch was, we're now growing to 100 people, you completely lose the edge that you have, right? So they understood that, and they were like, let's invest in growth in different ways, which is, for example, making games a bit faster. Now that you have this tool set, they're kind of investing in that stuff too, instead of in like this next project you're going to 100 people and this is going to be the biggest studio in the Netherlands, right? They don't really look for that. So very lucky with that, because typically that's not a great pitch, like, hey, I don't want to grow too much. But yeah, no, it's been really good so far, and I'm very happy that we took that route a bit earlier in the year already.
Did you have to do have you guys done like contract work on the side or anything as well, or you been able to just focus completely on your own projects?
Yeah, we've always been, it's been really good, because I think especially now pretty much every studio I know is looking for contract work. Like that market is extremely saturated as well, and there's less games being greenlit and made, so there's less contract work to give out. So yeah, that's really not helping. We did always consider it as a backup thing, because we obviously have very talented people here, but it's a whole different beast, I think, to tackle and really become good at, like doing these small scale, shorter projects. You need to do a lot of them to make that sustainable. So I'm very lucky and proud that we never had to do that yet. Not that it's a bad thing, but just like it's super cool if you can make your own projects, obviously. So yeah.
I guess, with the Knightling, then like what, I'm sure pretty much any studio or developer listening to this that's going through the same issue is going to be wondering, like, what are you planning to do to try to revitalize, sales on it and get it in more people's hands?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's obviously also, working with the publisher to make sure we focus on the right things. So they're
still involved with it too?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's just we're all trying to see like where are the opportunities still for this without instantly dropping it to like 90% off and hoping that it will just bring in a lot of copies. You don't want to do that and like completely devalue it. Yeah. The industry is on the move a lot. That goes for devices and Steam suddenly announcing a bunch of hardware and stuff. Not saying that we're doing anything in particular with that, but just the idea of keeping track of the trends and the things that are coming up and seeing if there's an opportunity there. If there's like a new platform or a thing that needs like content, then we have this really cool game that's actually rated quite well. The subscription models are important to look at, I think. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say, like, this seems like a perfect game for Game Pass if they reached out or anything.
Yeah, they haven't, but I'm not sure what the current status is, but something like that is interesting as well, right? Like, it's the game is there. A lot of people enjoy it. It's one of those games that you just want to dive into the world of. And even if that doesn't like fully cover what we spend on the Knightling, that's still a very cool way to build that audience and make sure that people know our worlds and our work. So
yeah, that's
I'd
like
be very interested in that.
I think the most important currency is audience building at this point. Like
exactly,
you can sell 10,000 copies of your game, and you might release your next one, and there's just so many games that people don't even know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, developer 1 of 1,000 release a new game. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Building,
yeah,
that's what like drives me nuts about the developer industry right now, is like that audience building. It's like, it's frustrating enough in media to do it. Like,
I can imagine.
Having to rely on selling a product to also do it is just such a daunting thing. So that's why that like development story and like making sure that people know like who made this, because that's one of my favorite things in like games coverage, because I've been doing this so long, is I follow a studio for years and years and years, and then I see their name pop up in the Xbox showcase, and I'm like, oh shit, because that just happened
I know them.
last week with Raji. It's a studio that's based in India, and I think they released their game like right around the same time you guys did. Is Pine.
Cool.
Raji and Ancient Epic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And they just announced incredible looking sequel at the Xbox showcase that looks like
amazing,
almost an Indian God of War. And so
super cool.
That's what I love seeing, is like, oh, that team, that logo, and that team, that story.
And I think there's a lot of people do like that idea, right? Like, it's rooting for the underdogs, and especially I think that's kind of what indie starts to mean right now, is like you can feel like you have a connection with a team, as opposed to AAA, where you can never feel like you're in touch with these people a lot, even though a lot of them are on Twitter.
or you don't want to be.
Or you don't want to be, exactly. So that's any opportunity we get to build that audience is really great. And like, publishers are an amazing way to enable us making games, but it's also a risk in that sense that you want to, it takes away from the developer making it. And that's really to know like I think publishers are actually trying, at least in our case, they're trying to push us forward, right, as the developer. So that's really cool. It's just that sometimes you can't help it because you just have a much bigger name and you need to utilize the best marketing channels for something. So yeah, that's always a difficult one. Is like how do you just build on that audience and keep building? Yeah.
All right. Well, I think the conclusion of this conversation is who the hell knows?
Yeah.
There's just too many games.
Yeah, and this is obviously a hot topic for us today and for all the other studios, and I think it's just the product validation and the audience building. That's the two, and the shorter timelines. That's the three main things I'm hearing. And then AI is thrown into everything, which I don't want to touch with a stick, but unfortunately, the connection with shorter game development is made a lot. And all I know is that all the studios around us are like, hell no. So it's that one's a weird one. I'm very curious where that will go, but let's not open.
I guess without, I was gonna say, without diving too much into that conversation, like, obviously you guys aren't using Gen AI or anything like that, but a lot of developers seem to be using AI for some of the more monotonous tasks of basic.
It's weird to me. We've always done that. Like for the past 10 years, we just didn't call it AI. We just called it like, I don't know, even something like Houdini, which is a procedural engine, right? To make sure that our roads and our trees and the rivers listen to each other. It's a monotonous task to like painstakingly paint every terrain detail in, or like place every tree like we did in Pine. It's nonsensical to not let the computer solve that, but we don't call that AI, right? Like it's a bit weird.
I'm so worried that handcrafted is going to become
it's going to be a tag on Steam or something. Yeah, for sure.
Tag and like a key selling point. And I'm like, oh, no. I just got a little kerfuffle on social media because I was like trying to explain how like Art Graders uses AI for their ping system, and people are very angry about them using generative AI for that. But what they don't understand is like the ping system, they contracted voice actors to train their voices on a system that they designed specifically for the game, for their ping system. So it's a extraction game, so you're collecting every little item in a rubber duck, a spring, a brick, whatever it is, and the ping system, if you point at it and call it, it calls every single object individually. And so I'm like, this is an efficient use of this, because you don't want to call somebody back into the office to say brick.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, we added a brick. You say brick? Yeah. No, obviously. I mean, I'm still amazed that games like Scribblenauts got made before AI, but like that sort of stuff would be a bit sensible in a way, right? It's, I don't know. I wonder how Pine
would have done in that conversation today, because of all the simulation stuff you guys were doing. And, obviously
that's the thing. It's so weird that even at the time of blogging and having the Kickstarter, the amount of times we used AI to just describe the simulation that was running in the background, it's just that's what it meant back then. If you would write it now, completely different connotation. That's really weird. Really weird how that evolved. But yeah, games industry has always been at the forefront of these like technical things, like Web3, NFTs kind of originate, or like at least the base ideas executed a lot in games. So I don't know. It's in a weird spot.
It's always the money men that come in and ruin it.
It is. Yeah, it always is. But yeah, luckily no sign of that for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, anything else you want to tell me about Knightling or Pine? Or I guess
really.
I'm assuming you can't say, because I've done this a long time, but are you guys planning on re-bringing it to Switch?
I can't say much about that. No.
You gotta use those press skills for something sometimes.
Yeah, I know. If we're off the record, I would have loved to tell you. No, I'm not going to say anything about it.
Cool. All right. Well, where can people follow Twirlbound and learn more about the Knightling?
Yeah. We are on Blue Sky, on Facebook, although not many other people are on there anymore. And on X, same story. YouTube, Instagram, all the socials, basically just look for Twirlbound. We also have a Twirlbound Discord, which is really cool because we're all on there, just a small team and talking to people. And then the Knightling is on Steam, PlayStation, and Xbox, and Pine is on PlayStation, PC, like GOG, Steam, Epic Game Store, and Nintendo Switch as well. So a lot of places, and hopefully more in the future where our games will be and where you can find us. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me for
Thank you.
this episode of Beyond the Pixels. We are currently working on branding for it, so I don't have anything to show you yet.
That's all right.
By the time this episode is out, it'll look formalized and nice and cool, and
That's cool.
hopefully people enjoy it.
Exciting.
Thanks for taking the time to join me today.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Yeah, absolutely.